Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome, and thanks for being here. I hope everyone is enjoying this great fall weekend. As I was writing that out, I remember last year, asking does anybody use the word autumn anymore? And I hadn't thought about that word for a whole year. And now the only time I brought it back up again. Look, I had a ton of great feedback from the last episode. I appreciate all the great comments, stories that everyone shared. I had people agreeing, disagreeing, and some just saying, I'm just going to pay a little bit more attention. I don't know if I've ever noticed that or I never looked for that type of thing. So it was fun. It was just a lot of fun. Just interacting with so many people since the last episode. It's been a lot of fun. And look, just FYI, everything I bring you here on the podcast is from my own point of view, right? Being a teacher, I've learned how to bring information from my point of view, and I bring it loosely enough to give you the option to keep it, toss it, or save it till it applies, right? Because what works for me and what I've learned, you know, in the hobby, what works for me, it's me. It's how I hobby, right? Um, every time I feel there was a lesson to be learned or information I feel was important, I'm going to bring it here and share it with you. But again, my point of view. That's what I do, right? That's what this podcast is about. Sports card lessons learned. The last few weeks, I've been concentrating on buying hockey. I've talked about this raw and graded. I really think there's probably a lot more profit in buying raw if you can get good grades out of it. And I know for me, if I can see a card or look at a card or go to a show and see a card to buy raw, I can probably determine if it's going to be better than an 8, right? That's probably the best I can do at looking at a card. But if you go out and buy a PSA 10, it's a guarantee. It's a home run. You know what you're getting. You know what you're getting when you buy it. So yeah, I've been buying both. I've been buying raw and graded cards, and it amazes me, you know, being at the right place at the right time. Some of these great deals are made. And I've talked about this before. You sit on eBay and you go through comps and on a card, you'll see, 280, 270, 290, 310, 195. Damn, I wish I could have bought that thing at 195, right? And lately, just being very, very persistent on auctions, very persistent, just having so many auctions that I just say, you know what, if I can get this at a certain price, snipe it, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it down. Being persistent and knowing, what I'm willing to pay for an individual card and sticking to it is really the key. You know me, I'm a man full of plans, right? I have tons of plans, but I stay vigilant to them and it's, it helps me. It's what I do. It's helped me be successful in life, right? If I can create a plan and stick to it. And it doesn't mean that my plan is always right, because probably had more plans that were wrong before I had enough right plans, right? But the plan, for me, the plan just creates discipline, that even if it turns out that the plan was wrong or the play was a bad plan, my losses are limited, right? Um, if it turns out to be a good plan, right, then everything I set up and I said, this is the plan, this is what I'm hoping to do, and it works, right? So 3 years in, 2 years, 2 going to national back to back, I put a plan together, and it worked well last year. It worked well for me, but I created that plan so what my losses would be small. If the plan didn't work out, I still wasn't going to lose a ton of money. I wasn't going to lose. It's not like going to the casino, right? And saying, "Here's my plan. I'm going to go in here with 5K and I'm going to double my money or quadruple my money." And you could just walk out with nothing. I mean, that's just a bad plan going in there, right? So when I create plans, I make it so that my losses are limited, and especially if it's a brand new plan. Brand new plans, I usually, um, you know, I really bring them down. My expectation is very low on brand new plans, and I make sure that I'm going to stick to it. So if the plan turns out bad or parts of the plan were bad, my losses are limited. So with this hockey, this plan I created, I just put a list of players that I wanted to acquire, these cards that I wanted to buy. Um, I went back to last year. I looked at these players. I looked at what their highest sales were, their lowest sales, the average sales, and even more important, the timing of the season, and why the players' prices were up or down. Was it playoffs? Was there an injury? Was it preseason hype on a player? Certain players, their prices just stayed the same the whole year. They may have fluctuated 10, 15, $20, but for the most part, and I mean, a lot of times with the young guns, the PSA 10 cards, there's not a lot of expensive ones out there. The most of them are 100 or less than 100, right? And then you've got your McDavids and your Matthews and stuff like that. These cards are a lot more. And then you've got the other players that are say to 150 to 200 or 250, 300, 350, something like that. But it's different with those. There's not a lot of big money. There's not a lot of high end in the PSA 10 of those cards. And trying to find out, what part of the season that these guys' prices were going up and down just to help me make, an educated decision when I'm going to sell these cars. I mean, I'm buying these cars now, but when am I going to sell them? When is the best? Is it going to be when the season first kicks off? Is it going to be preseason like football is, right? Some of the hype on football through the summer, these guys, these prices go up, and then we'll start to see now that the football season's going. Some guys are doing well, some guys aren't doing well. The prices are coming down on some people, and at some point, some of the prices are going to go up on some people, and just try to figure that out for hockey. I know a lot about hockey. I watch hockey, but I've never really followed the market. Last year was my first time selling hockey. So I started and I made a lot of mistakes. I put plans together and I made mistakes. So this year I said, I need to correct. These are the mistakes I made. I go back to my notes, right? These are the mistakes I made. Let's change that. But I, at the end of the season last year, right? I still did pretty well with hockey, even though I made a ton of mistakes last year. And I know I made a ton of mistakes, and I've talked to you guys about it, but I still did well with the hockey. I did well enough with certain cards and certain players that it made up for the other players and the other cards that I didn't do too well with. And I felt one of my downfalls last year. Well, I had a few, but one of them was just being too spread out, just buying way too many players last year. And hockey's one of those funny things that, and I'm gonna say this in our area, right, in the Northeast. So if you have the Devils, the Rangers, the Islanders, the Bruins, right, and now this little bit of the Sabres and the Canadians, um, these are these this is the fan base is in this area. So those are the people buying those cards. So I didn't do a lot online last year as far as selling. I didn't do a lot on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, things like that. Where this year I'm going to try a little more. I'm going to buy these cards for taking to the shows, but they're also going to be available on Facebook and Instagram and things like that. So they're not going to go to eBay or PWCC, anything like that. They're not going to go to the auction sites, but to be able to be more active in moving the cards and just getting more eyes on these cards, hopefully just to be more successful. um So with my list, with my plan, the list I put together, I created a buy list. The player, I created what I wanted to spend on it, what I would spend on a card, what I would go up to spend on a card, what was the max spend, like the worst case scenario, that would be the most I would spend on a card. Um, and then I got to work. I just going through all the Facebook groups and going through eBay and PWCC and Instagram story sales and even going to shows, looking at shows. Now at shows, I talked about buying some Jack Hughes cards at the East Coast National from an attendee who had just walked up with cards. But for the most part, I felt that even then hockey was a little popular. Like people were really looking for hockey then, which was exciting to me, but it wasn't it, uh, as far as the buying aspect, there wasn't many people selling the hockey. And even online, there wasn't a lot of, I mean, especially in the groups, there wasn't a lot of people selling. And I'm going to say the ultra modern stuff, a lot of the younger guys, of course, the Gretzkys, the Ovechkins, the Lemieux, stuff like that. I mean, they're always in those groups, but now all of a sudden, you know, um, August came and I felt, oh, this is going to be the time. I'm going to start. I'm going to start, buying. And I started the East Coast National, and I was going through the groups and going online, and I really couldn't find many of the players that I was looking for, what I wanted to do. Um, I was surprised to be able, in buying now, September, mid-September, um, to be able to buy between what I wanted to spend and what I would spend, and I had not going anywhere near the max price on that. Um, and the only part of the plan, uh, and I'm going to share this with you that I completely overlooked from the beginning of putting this plan together, and I thought I had everything covered on the plan, was buying multiples of the same player. Like, what was I willing to do that? Did I believe in that player enough? Now, I did it with Jack Hughes. I bought a number of his cards. So, was I willing to do that? And I'm going to give you another for instance that happened to me over the course of the last few weeks. Is I was able at my wanted price, I was able to snipe on eBay a Cole Caulfield PSA 10 Young Guns. Really excited. Perfect. All the other prices were going, well over that price. So I was pretty excited about getting that price. Um, and then one showed up. I think it was the PWCC auction site, which was below that price I paid. And I was keeping an eye on it. And I said, look, if this thing stays below what I've already bought the last one for, I'm going to buy this one. So I put a bid on it and I ended up winning it. So perfect. Right now I have two of them. Then one showed up on Facebook, in a group on Facebook. Somebody had a whole lot of cards. It must have had maybe 25, 30 cards. So I went through the cards. I contacted them. I went through the cards and I said, look, I think it was 8 cards, I was willing to take. And I said, look, I see you have that Caulfield there. If you want to throw that in for this price, which was now below the PWCC price, I said, you could throw that in. I'll take that one too. So he agreed. And I'm like, wow, this is great. Is it great? Is the price of this card going down? May I just, you go to eBay and Card Ladder and the price seems to be going up on that card, but I seem to be buying it at a pretty good value. So now I'm excited. Then I have a listener who knows that I'm buying hockey and reaches out to me and says, "You look, I was looking at these cards and on your Instagram, and I'm really interested in these cards, and I have this Cole Caulfield PSA 10. You want to do a deal? You want to trade? Of course I will. Right now I have 4 of them. I'm excited because again, I felt like the price went down again on this card, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. In my plan, I never planned that the prices would keep coming down on it. But I mean, hockey season doesn't even start till next month, right? So this is kind of the preseason. So, or actually preseason, we're before it, right? So, um, is this a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. When I put this in the plan and I was doing this, I said, well, I mean, I'm hoping that the first one I bought, I hope that my numbers weren't off my wanted to buy price was that I set that too high, right? And I'm almost thinking maybe I did, but now I see what these other ones are starting to sell on some of these other. I see where people are asking for them on Facebook singly for the card. I see what they're selling for on eBay, and it's higher than my wanted price, my first one that I purchased. So I'm not feeling so bad. I'm not feeling nervous at all. Quality hockey player. Again, when I create this plan, I'm doing it so that my losses would be minimal if prices went down on that, right? And I just spoke about I have a number of Jack Hughes cards. I think I want to say I have four of the his Young Gun PSA 10s and four or five other rookie cards of his too. So the only thing The only thing that worries me about that or could hurt me about that is if these guys get an injury or they don't play or, something else affects their card prices, right? I may get stuck with it. I may have been I may be saying, wow, this was great. And there may be a reason why other people are selling. Not that I've seen or not any news that I've seen or anything that I've seen that would cause people to, you know, try to liquidate these cards, but I think people just say, "Hey, you know what? It's hockey's coming and it's time to start moving these cards." So I'm happy to be able to buy these cards at the right price, as long as it's part of the plan. Um, and I do get a little nervous. I mean, and this is kind of new to me, owning multiples of the same card. I was thinking back that, as I was getting ready to do this, I was thinking, have I owned multiples? I think I've owned multiples, Trinity Rodman cards, but that's part of my PC. The football, the cards that I had going into the National last year, I had a number of cards that I had two of those, right? That worked out fine. The cards sold, but four of one guy, that's, I don't know, that's probably a little more than I wanted. But and you know what? I'm gonna say it honestly. If another one showed up even lower than the last price, I would probably jump on that one too and hope for the best on that. Um, I've also purchased a good amount of singles that'll be going to PSA, and it's one of these funny things where I say, "All right, I have these 26 cards," and then I wrote up the thing, and then all of a sudden I buy this bulk deal where I have one graded and seven ungraded coming. I haven't received them yet, and I'm like, okay, let's hold up that order because I got to see what of those could go to PSA. Uh, and now I've just purchased another lot of cards, right? There's 12 cards in this lot. And I'm like, okay, now that hasn't even shipped yet. And I'm like, I got to get this order together to get it out there. But one of the interesting things that I witness at a lot of these shows, especially with hockey, and I think it's because it's tough to grade a lot of those cards, is a lot of the cards are raw there to begin with. So that's why I think, as I go through these Facebook groups and things like that, people are selling a lot of these raw cards. And then you start looking, you want to comp the card and you go look at ones that are graded and you see, BGS 8.5 or PSA 8 or PSA 9. You don't see many 10s. And I know the grading is tough on these cards, and some of them are low, and I'm sure maybe some of them have been graded and cracked out. So I really, really, as part of the plan, I really need to have a good look at these cards because I don't want to spend the money and the shipping and the insurance and the PSA to grade these cards, if they don't look like they could come back, nines or tens. And tens is 10 PSA 10 is always the goal, right? But on a lot of cards, if the pop counts on the tens are so low, you could shoot for the 10, but you're right there in the average with the nine. So I still don't mind that. But if I look at something and on a card and I see that the PSA 9, the pop count is through the roof, then I'll probably just leave that card. If I have any doubt at all that this card may not come back as a 10, which to me is probably almost 100%. I will probably just, put that card in my case as a raw card and just leave it raw. And you know what? Same thing happened last year. I put raw cards in there and the people were buying them. Um, and I know a lot of what I've seen at these shows recently is people just going through a lot of these singles box, buying a lot of singles. And I know a good amount of people are looking to grade these cards, but I really think that, especially with the hockey, that they're just being sold raw somewhere else, and somebody's picking it up raw, selling it raw. And the nice thing about hockey too, a lot of those patches are all, game worn patches, which is really kind of cool. Like, I know, when people are looking at patches, they're always saying, "Is that game worn? Is that game worn?" And with hockey, I mean, the majority of those are game worn, so that's really kinda cool. And the patches, like the hockey patches on some of these are just really look incredible. They're just such great looking patches. Uh, I put this plan together in August, um, and then at that point, I was really basing all those prices on current and last year's prices. So the only fault in this plan right now is knowing, and I would have to be able to see the future, right? Knowing where the prices are going to go this year. So I really can only look at last year to see where they started, where they ended up, where they were during the summer, and where they could bounce back to. And that's a lot of the same thing I did with the football last year when I was buying December, January, February, March, was just looking at it, a lot of it from the season before and the summer before, to see where the prices were at, to see, the possibility. And it's a risk factor. It's definitely a risk because I can't say, "Hey, look, Cole Caulfield, his Young Guns PSA 10 last November was selling for $450. So if I buy this card now at $250, I'm going to be selling it at $450 in November." No, it's not going to happen that way. One of the things that happens with the Young Guns is that more and more get graded and the pop count keeps climbing higher and higher. And as the pop count climbs, obviously, you know, less demand of the card because there's more out there, right? There's not a shortage. So you would think last year, is just 1 year in. Now you've got a whole other year of grading, and it's not like those boxes. You can't buy those boxes anywhere. I could go online right now, and I could buy a ton of those hobby boxes and get a ton of his cards out of those hobby boxes, and certainly start grading them. And I'm sure that's what a lot of people did, and any of the top players. And you know, think about it. I mean, I think the hobby boxes cost 79 or $89, a box. So you can buy the box. If you pull one of his out, you can send it in and get a PSA 10. I mean, you've probably only put out 125 or $130 on that card. So if the card is selling at $300 or 275, even if somebody comes in and says, and I know the listener I got it from said he pulled that card, he graded that card, right? So he wasn't into it for a lot, and it made sense for him to move that card into two cards that equaled $250, right? Even though he was probably into that for half of that. So only time is going to tell, right? Only time will tell what the prices are going into this year. Pop counts, how high they'll climb. I don't foresee them climbing much higher. I watched the pop counts, and I look to see that from last spring to the summer, how much they jumped up, and it seems to have slowed down now. So I don't think there are many more out there being graded. I've seen some of the cards, some of the other players that I'm looking for, and I have my wanted price, and I've seen some of them drop below the wanted prices, but I have not been able to get them. Like, I have not been able to be that person to get it. So now I've got what I would buy it at, and it's well below the max, right? And now I'm like, well, I've seen them go at the wanted price, so I'm a holdout now. Now I'm like, now I have to wait because I know these lower ones are the new comps right now. So I don't want to spend anything over and just, start losing start losing profit before I even get started on something like that. Um, and it's difficult, and I have to say this. The most important part of this, of what I'm doing, is not to get caught up in the moment and spend over the plan, right? And I know it's difficult. I know because I've done it in the past, and I really have to stay focused, especially with these auctions, right? And these auctions that run 7 days, and, like, this card came up, and we all have it. We all have on eBay, and, we save the search, and it says, notifies you, "Hey, this card is up on auction." You go look at it, 7 days, started at 99 cents, and, for 6 days and, you know, 23 hours and 50 minutes, the price has stayed, really reasonable. Like, wow, I'm gonna get this for a steal, and 5 minutes before it ends, right, all of a sudden the price jumps up even to what the last current comp was, or maybe a few dollars over that, right? And now it's over the budget. It's over the budget and the plan. And at that point now, when that happens, I just shake my head and close the window. I just close the window. All done. All done. And so many people I talk to, they find that hard to do. And a couple of them are like, "What's 10 more dollars?" I ended up getting the win. It cost me $10 to get the win. Um, I can't see it that way. I can't see it that way. I know a lot of people do, and I think that's what, eBay and PWCC, I think that's what these sites are built on, you know, to get you, built up in the moment to say, at some point it's almost a frenzy, just saying, "I want this card, so I don't care. I'm just going to overbid just so I could win it and be the winner and feel like the winner of that." But at what was the price on it? Um, I was once like that, to throw the extra 10 or $12, but I'm like, "I waited this long for this card. I don't see any other ones for auction, so I'm just gonna throw that now." If it's something that I'm going to resell somewhere, strong hands, right? Strong hands. Just close the window and move on to the next, whatever else you're doing. And you have to remember, if it's not a 101 or a super low number card, there's going to be another one. There's going to be more that's going to come out. You could find some at your local show. You could find some in a Facebook group. And one of the cool things about, like, Instagram and Facebook is you can communicate with people and just say, "Hey, I see you got this card." You can DM them, and it's no big deal. I've been doing this online, and I throwing prices out. I see people have the cards. I'll be like, "Hey, I'm interested in this card. This is what I'm willing to pay. Let me know if you're interested. Yes, no, maybe the card's sold, or I'll get back to you. I just put it up. If I get a better offer, I'm going to take that." A couple times people have, a couple days later, have come back and say, "Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that." I'd be like, "Perfect." Um, and somebody who said that to me sent me a couple of screenshots of other people that offered him the same amount, and just came back to me and said, "You were the first one that offered it to me. I'm giving you the first shot at it." I said, "I appreciate it. Um, PayPal you over the money and wait for the cards to come." Um, so don't be afraid. I guess what I'm saying is, don't be afraid to just know your price. If you figure out, what you're willing to spend or how much you're willing to spend, and somebody's got something out there, just go ahead and DM them and send your price over, and, just, "Hey, this is what I'm willing to pay." If they come back and said they want more, just say, I'm all set. I'm good at, 100 or 110, whatever you sent there, and just see what happens from there. There's pop counts on these cards are so high now that, there's only there's so many of them out there that, you know, you're gonna get lucky. People are going to accept your offers and take it. But make a plan, right? And stick to it. That's the lesson here. That's the lesson learned today, right? Make a plan, stick to it, because you'll improve your profit and reduce your losses. And, if you're doing what I'm doing and you're trying to resell these cards for a little bit of a profit, you know, that's the way to do it. If you're just buying it to collect, then I mean, it's okay to spend that extra $10. Why not? If it's going in your collection, why not? Because there are some cards that I'm, with Trinity Rodman. If I see a card, I may overpay a little bit on it because I just want the card. Maybe the card is scarce, or I'm just happy to get this card now, and then I can just check the box. I don't have to look for that card anymore. But you're getting cards for resale or whatever you're doing with it. Make a plan, stick to it. That's all I have for you today. Thursday's episode, another great guest, Chris McGill from Card Ladder will be on Thursday. You don't want to miss that. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe. And most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. Until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you.